W. Smith, and I'm back with another one. This book, The Black Laws in Old Northwestern, a documentary history. I thought this was pretty good. Um, when I read this, obviously my mind took me to Matthew McConaughey and Samuel L. Jackson in the movie A Time to Kill. But I thought this was interesting that they lumped together the blacks, the mulattoes, in the Indians, all under the same definition. But as I read more and find out there was other peoples here in the Americas, I wonder why they don't lump them in with these definitions. And when I mean they were here, take for instance, the East Indians were in the Americas the uh, and in the West Indian Islands, but none of this applies to them. Like they don't list them here. Um, the Spaniards and the Spanish. Why doesn't any of this apply to them when they were here? You know, I was just, but this right here basically is the layout that a black is not cannot be a witness against a white person, a person of color. He or him, the man himself or herself, uh, cannot be a witness against a white person in court, basically, and because they were illiterate. This is just basically their justification, and I believe this is in Illinois, Indiana, in the state of Indiana. But I think I found some stuff that we spoke about Illinois, the state of Illinois, was in on this too. But they said Indiana was big on being pro-slave. I gotta find that page here in this book, but I mean, when I read this, I'm like, I gotta keep this. I gotta screenshot this. I gotta make sure I have this because there it is. This is that clear-cut definition. Thus, a white person could murder, assault, or rob a person of color, and without a white witness or a sympathetic judge, the victim would be powerless in court. Indiana states. That was, I mean, right there. That's like Jim Crow. It all came out. Seems like at the same time because I know uh, this is an 1800s uh, layout in this book, but I want to see if they actually have a date. I wonder how I can do that. But this was the other thing. I mean, they give out their own, besides West Virginia, I mean, Virginia, where we know in Virginia they have laws where they basically took the Indian and changed it to the Negro to mulatto, to what was it, Africans and African Americans. But this was at least in the state of Indiana, which I want to see if sometime I can get Lex Will to check this out because he would break this down a lot better than I could. I mean, if I read this right now, it would still sound just like the book. Here, he would be able to see the puzzle, basically that they're trying to throw at you or throw at us. But I left this on my Google Plus. I'm gonna leave it in the description box if you want to check it out. I just thought this was really disturbing, but I mean, it links it all together. And this is the thing too. I thought about this, right? Because I'm trying to figure this out. How is it that and I know I'm not in the right ballpark yet or in the right context. See, 1807. That's what I was looking for. That's what I meant. This is around that time. But I was trying to figure this out, and I was looking through a few books on was it the University of Yale, their website, to see if they have anything. But when you run across different stories of Native Americans arguing with Europeans, it's like, wait a minute. I know this is the state of Indiana, but how is it that these tribes could argue with the white man, but they'll tell you here that you couldn't argue with the white man, Uh, like, how can they say that they're Indians, but yet they, let me see if I can show you an example, and maybe you can help. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, how can you have that as a definition, but this can go on? Listen to this. Let me see here. Hold on. But see, now check this out.
Because it is a fairly complex document, I introduced it to the students simply by asking them to identify the different names and to do a little genealogy of who the players are and how they're related to one another. So on the one side, they have Molly Hightower, they have Molly Hightower's father. On the other side, they have Sam Dent. They have his Cherokee wife. They have his purchase of Molly, the slave. On Molly the slave then becomes a Cherokee. The idea of tribes and nations that we operate with today when we talk about Native Americans didn't always exist in its current form. What we see in this document is a world in which family, clan membership, kinship affiliation was kind of the dominant logic of the society. And to understand that dominant logic, you have to understand the names and you have to understand the relationships. So it's sort of a window into not only the time period, but also a method of doing history that speaks to the power of history itself, how it helps us understand another society that's different from our own. I think students, they assume that because Sam Dent was a white man, that he would have felt no responsibility to the Deer Clan, that he would have felt no sense of loyalty or allegiance to the Cherokee Nation. But I think what they need to understand is that the reality at this time was very different. Sam Dent made his living off of trading with Cherokee people. And most English traders understood that in order to trade with an Indian nation, you had to have a kinship affiliation with that nation. And so that's probably why Sam Dent married a Cherokee, was that his marriage to that woman enabled him.
Well, if you get to check this out, basically, this guy Sam, he marries this Cherokee woman. He's a trader, meaning he trades furs and all that stuff. But he ends up murdering, beating his Cherokee wife to death. Well, the Cherokee Nation of the Deer want a replacement for the life he just took. So he takes the slave that he has, and he marries, and he gives him to the Cherokees. But in another video, she actually speaks about the woman as if the Cherokees knew that she was Cherokee all along, and it was one of their own, and they were accepting her back. It sounds like she's a professor and that she has students studying this piece. But I still it's like, how did these people, the Cherokee Nation, how could they even hold this man guilty of anything? You know what I'm saying? Like, if he could go in there and kill a Cherokee woman and be protected by the United States or 13 colonies at that time, and they couldn't try him in court, but he could try them. What I'm saying? He can get off scot-free because they're an Indian. So I'm saying something that's just not adding up. You know what I'm saying?
That to make a living. And one of the things.
But when you think about what's his name, Frederick Douglass's mother, she couldn't hold Frederick Douglass's father in court for anything. Like, she didn't have the rights that they could have. You know what I'm saying?
Things that we feel we understand about American society is that whether right or wrong, European Americans have held the balance of power firmly in their hands over time. And this document is an example of a time period in which European Americans were not holding the balance of power. In fact, Cherokees at this time and place, certainly at the time and place in which Sam Dent made these decisions, were holding the balance of power. This document reminds us how the Cherokee Supreme Court was alive and well. It was doing its job and acting on behalf of the Cherokee Nation without regard to the United States and to the property laws of the United States that might have legitimized Sam Dent's sale to Molly Hightower's father.
I got one other one, though. This is I know this one's more personal for me because I'm around this area right now. Oh, let me see here. Oh, I was just right there. Where was it? See here.
The Seneca Tribe. The Seneca tribe lived from Seneca Lake to the Allegheny River, which is now western New York. Today, the Seneca Nation has 3 different reservations in western New York: the Allegheny Reservation, the Cattaraugus Reservation, and the Oil Springs Reservation. Another part of the Seneca Nation has a different reservation near Akron, New York. Parts of the Seneca tribe also live on the Six Nations Reserve, which is near Brantford, Ontario, and in Ottawa County, Oklahoma. The Seneca tribe was part of the Iroquois League, also known as the Six Nations. The Seneca tribe was the largest of the 6 tribes in the Iroquois League and was known as the Keepers of the Western
Sorry, I wanted
Door.
to blow this
Because
up.
of all the tribes in the Six Nations, they were the most westward tribe. The Seneca tribe's language was the Agwahowie, and in that language, the name for the Seneca tribe translated to the Great Hill People. The Seneca people lived in long houses on the riverside. For food,
But I'll be honest with you, I have not seen anything at all that shows you the houses or anything that the Senecas live in. You know, like if I went down to Raleigh, North Carolina, you can still find traces and proof that the Cherokee live the way they used to live. You know, just saying.
they used agriculture, harvesting corn, squash, and beans, and referred to these 3 foods as their life supporters. Seneca men also hunted in the fall and fished in the spring. The Seneca women were in charge of
You see this? I want to show you this. This is something that stood out to me even in this video. A lot of these women in this video are really, really dark looking. See that? I'm not saying that they are Negro, but they're dark. And today, in 2016, I'm not joking, though, Seneca women do not look like this. They, like, if you put them next to someone of Latino origin, you couldn't tell the difference. That's just how they look, you know. This is a really old picture of them.
elections. They decided who the tribal leader was, and the leaders were usually leaders for life, but could be removed for various reasons. The Seneca people also had a constitution, which was used as a model for the American Constitution. The Seneca were also great conquerors. They were very skilled at warfare.
In that part about the Constitution, there's actually a few Seneca men that fought alongside the North before they went to war with the South in certain battles. You know, I found them on Wikipedia. One day I'll go back over them. They like it just gets to me because New York State, you know, as I pointed out before, it's one of those states where no Indians were allowed. You know, but yet all throughout the state of New York, there's these people. They're everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like they have their 6 nations, six zones set up all throughout New York State, even where there are, you know, the British. You know, there's Rome, New York, and Rome, New York is supposed to have no Indians, but they're there, and they even have places set up near there. So it's like, you know, it's frustrating that, you know, you can sit there and say that, but the one thing I can point out to you that's not there are the Negroes, you know, but they're only brought there, you know, being told that they're, you know, under the title as in, you know, slaves or servants.
And were fierce toward anyone who tried.
So it's like it's a contradiction. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. How can you tell me that there are no Negroes there? I mean, there are no Indians in this state, but yet everywhere you look, there's these Indians, the Senecas, the Mohawks, and others. You know, so I mean, it's almost bogus. It's hard to even believe when you can learn as much as we've learned.
To resist their takeover. The Dutch had given them guns, which also helped them out greatly. One way the Seneca tribe resisted change was when the French came to attack with their Indian allies due to raids of trade goods. They changed their military tactics. They tried to add tactics for surprise and ambush, and they changed their motives for fighting. Their new goal was to fight for economic advantages and for control over the beaver hunting grounds. By changing their ways, it made them better fighters in the end. Another example of how the Seneca tribe resisted change was when the United States wanted the Seneca tribe to sign the Treaty of Buffalo Creek, which would make them relocate to Missouri. Majority of them refused to sign it, and that created the modern elected government known as the Seneca Nation of Indians. One last way the Seneca resisted change was when the French allied with the Huron tribe and came to destroy the Iroquois League. The Seneca led the Confederacy to victory. When this happened, the Confederacy unified all Iroquois-speaking people and became a lot stronger in power. Led by the Seneca tribe, the Confederacy fought in Canada and surrounded the capital of Huronia, which weakened their population due to warfare. The Huron tribe was forced to surrender and pledged their allegiance to Seneca as their protector and were sent to assimilate the Seneca homelands. The Seneca tribe started in New York, living from the Seneca Lake to the Allegheny River.
You see in there, a lot of, when I'm reading that book with the Jesuit relations and they start talking about the black Indians, they're from here, here, here to here. As far as I know for a specific, and say for sure. But all through this area, you also have the Senecas. And look, you have Seneca here, but you also have the Senecas reservations here. You have Wyoming. I actually learned that the Wyoming, the state, actually got its name from that here, this Wyoming. But you have, all this other territories where it's split up. It's actually split into like a zone through here. It was a zone through here, and they got it split up into 6 zones where it's supposed to be all nothing but, Indian territories, and at the same time the European territory. And as you're seeing, that they can negotiate with the Europeans and keep their land and tell them, no, you're not going to relocate us. Why is it they can do it, but the other tribes couldn't? You know what I'm saying? And how are they able to even negotiate and stand up? Why weren't they brutalized and raped and murdered the way that the Negro was, who's listed under that whole thing as colored along with the Indians as slaves, from that definition, that dictionary. So I'm just saying, this is just frustrating.
From 1755 to 1783, the Seneca tribe fought with the British in the Revolutionary War.
See, that's what I'm talking about. They fought with them, the British and the wars there. It's like, where have we seen that before?
Much of the Revolutionary War happened in New York, which is where the Seneca tribe lived. The Seneca sided with the British.
Hey, look at it, look, right there. That's that picture that they keep passing around saying it's a Moor, right? Right there. Now, where's the Indians? Please show me in this Revolutionary War, where are your Indians? Oh, bam! Right there. I've seen this like 3 times and I missed it. But I've seen that photo recently, and it's like, bam, right there. Look at the brother. There's your Indian. There he is. Oh man, I've missed it until now. Wow, that's like my mind just blew up. Wow.
Believing that if the colonists won it, it would be hard for them to keep their land, but also tried to remain neutral. In 1831, a treaty with the Seneca tribe took away their land, forcing them to go west of the Mississippi River. Then, in 1838, the Treaty of the Buffalo Creek was created, and
Anyways, I'm just tickled right now. So if you want to watch the rest of this, it's the Seneca tribe. Wow, I gotta hit up Arthur Scott. That's crazy. Anyways, everyone have a good night. It's MW Smith, and I'm out.